Hey everyone, welcome back to She Works Podcast. Today's guest is Shanti. Hi Shanti.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for being a guest today. So can you tell our listeners when you first realized you wanted to be an author and what was your inspiration?
So I think I first realized it. I've had like moments over the years when I've like thought like, oh, I want to be an author. The very first one, I believe, was in about first grade. For context, I was 5, I believe.
Oh,
I've been 6, something like that. And it was during free choice, and I just decided I wanted to write a book. I cannot figure out my thought process behind it. I don't remember anything other than I got all the materials, but the materials meaning just a bunch of scratch paper and all the markers, and I kind of glued them together. However, I drew the drawings. There weren't many words. I kind of couldn't really write them. So it was just a bunch of materials and like kind of glued together in like drawings. And I made the book. It was called The Cat and the Love because those were the only words I knew how to spell at the time. And it had a plot. It made sense, kind of. And over like the years, I kind of rewrote it, I feel like. I did, I think, 3 versions maybe.
wow.
And after that, I was done. However, I did have a book. And from then on, I kind of just started writing these little booklets. And I was like, I want to do this like for real when I'm older. I want to have a printed book, except I didn't actually think I would be able to do that. So I was like, maybe when I'm in my 40s or something, I'll write this super good book and maybe it'll be kind of short, but I'll publish it. And I can say, oh yeah, I wrote a book. However, considering I'm 14 now and I've written more than one short book,
wow.
I believe, completely blew it out of proportion.
Wow. When did you first start like your very first published book? What age was you?
I was 12. It was a book I had written with my friend called Odyssey. Actually, today is the 2-year anniversary of it. I really don't like that book. It's really short compared to all my other books. It's 50 as opposed to the 300. My books on average are 300 pages now. Published. This one was 50 pages. I don't want to say it's a children's book, but it's like a novella, but it's like a children's novella. I don't know. It's weird. It's really not good. But there were 2 of them, and that kind of paved the way to all the other books eventually.
Wow, that's cool. That's really wow. 14. I'm like sitting there thinking about what I was doing at 14. I definitely was not writing books. So can you tell our listeners what inspired your book, The God's Right Hand?
So The God's Right Hand is this one. And it was inspired, I think it was just a random idea I had in the car one day. And for some idea, basically, the book is about this girl who can catch bullets. And she just discovers this. She freaks out because one day she kind of gets shot and she doesn't die, catches it. And of course, it takes place in the middle of a civil war. So it kind of adds that aspect to it. Here's the question. Okay, if you found out you could catch bullets in the middle of a civil war, what would you do? And wouldn't there be people after you? I think I just randomly thought of it, honestly. I wrote it down, but I was like, this is kind of a really graphic idea. I don't think I should do this. I did.
That's cool. How does your family feel about this? Like your parents, like I know they're very supportive. So, but how do they feel about you writing these books?
They're insanely proud. Pretty much, I feel like every month or so, sometimes even less than that. I've written some of these really quickly. I'll just come out of my room and be like, oh yeah, you guys, I finished another book. Or I'll be like, do you guys want to hear about the new book I'm writing? Be like, wait, weren't you just writing that one? I'm like, oh yeah, I finished that one already.
Oh wow.
And yeah, it's pretty surprising for them.
That is cool. So how did you develop the characters for that specific story?
So for The God's Right Hand, it kind of started as just this idea of this girl. I want the main character to be a girl. I like writing about girls as opposed to boys, although I have had some boy characters I really liked. And I started out by being like, okay, what's she gonna look like? Every book I write, I figure out what the character looks like first. I don't know why I do it. I can't write them without knowing what they look like. And from then on, I was like, okay, how is she going to feel about having this power? What's her personality like? And from then I started developing. However, what I do is a little different than from a lot like other authors do. Is I don't go and I don't develop the story really in detail before I start writing it. Usually, I just kind of write and let the story develop the character, which it can be good, it can be bad. actually, right now, I'm about to start a new book because I just finished number 15. And this new book is actually for a middle grade audience. So beforehand, I am kind of developing the character and the story, actually, because it's based off of a little book I wrote in 3rd grade. So I really needed to kind of remember stuff from that and to kind of build off of that. So I just have this whole in detailed like notes tab right now. However, mostly for my books, I don't do that.
Nice. So are these series of books, or are all of these standalone?
So some of my books are actually standalones. The God's Right Hand currently is not a standalone. There needs to be a sequel. However, I have not written the sequel yet. Books like You and Her Name are standalone. And The Accidental Insurgent, this one, I wrote it in 16 days, actually. I edit in 16 days. Don't worry. I didn't just post it I didn't just publish it after 16 days of writing it. But the first draft was completed in 16 days. And this one is a standalone. However, I kind of left it on a bit of a cliffhanger, so I feel bad. I think I should finish it and do another one. But then I have completed series. All 3 books are out for the Chronicles of Xylan Delane. And then final book. This is the first published book. It was originally going to be a standalone, except the first draft looked like this. It was 800 pages long. It was too long to publish, so I ended up splitting into 3 books, and I ended up publishing the first book. The other 2 books are still in editing.
Nice.
Nice.
And all these young adults, they're young adults books, right? Or kids' book, children book? They are?
They're all young adult. I'd say 12 and up for all of them, except for You Won't Know Her Name, which is this one. This one is definitely for ages 14 or 15 and up. It's a little more mature than my other books. Yeah, they're all young adult. Right now, I'm actually working on a book that's maybe for like 8 and up. I'm trying to get something for younger kids too to kind of expand my audience.
Yeah, that's really, really good. So can you tell us what inspired You Don't Know Her Name?
So You Won't Know Her Name is basically a true account of the bullying that my sister and I faced starting 6th grade. When that happened, I had no idea I was ever going to tell anyone about it, that I was ever going to turn it into a book. I just wanted to forget about it, except as time moved on, I realized how severe it was, and it started to really affect me. And besides meeting with my principal 100 times, trying to make a change in my school, because my school is not a safe place, I ended up turning to writing, and I wrote this book entirely in poetry. The poems are very interesting. They're kind of meant to be like the character's thoughts in a sense. And I actually finished writing the first draft of this in 10 days. Poems are, of course, kind of shorter to write, and they're easy. And I, again, didn't think I was going to publish it. I had tried in the past, actually, to write a book about what happened to me. I couldn't get that past the first chapter, the second chapter, the prologue for any of them. I still have those drafts. I don't know what I'll do with them. But this was the one that ended up working out. I wrote it in the summer between 7th and 8th grade, and actually published it over the summer, too. So I started 8th grade kind of with a secret, and it's that I wrote a book, and it's technically about my school. And it's been kind of nerve-wracking because I'm scared, like one of my my school's administration is going to find out about it and be like, Shanti, why did you write a book about this? Wow. However, it's been fine so far. And then I actually wrote a poetry companion to it. And these are just poems that I wrote before, during, and after the publication of You Won't Know Her Name. And this book's actually sold pretty well too. But this one's not as interesting as You Won't Know Her Name. It was more just like a poetry journal for me.
Wow. I wanted to go more into depth about that. You're right. That is a really popular book because so you and your sister were bullied in 8th grade?
6th grade, actually. 6th
grade? Oh, wow. Yeah. Wow. So did your sister contribute to your book, or was it just you?
It was mainly just me. I kind of ran some things past her at first, but it's normally just me.
Oh, wow. How did she feel about it? Like, did she read it? How did she feel about it?
She read it. I think she really likes it.
She did? Oh, that's so cute. So how old is your sister? Like, is she your younger sister?
We're twins.
Oh, wow. That is cool. Wow. I can't see you two being bullied. Like, I don't get it. Like,
I don't either.
I don't get why people bully. Like, I was bullied in high school, so not in middle school or elementary school, but in high school I was bullied pretty bad. So yeah, wow, that's crazy. Like, at that age, like I couldn't imagine. So can you tell our listeners a little bit about what inspired Biome Block?
So Biolock was the first novel I ever wrote, and that one honestly was inspired by my isolation because, of course, in the middle of the right at the beginning of the pandemic, I was stuck at home. I had nothing to do. I was very, very bored, and a few months prior to that, I had written Odyssey, and I didn't really want to continue it. So instead, I sat down and started writing a new novel. And of course, originally, I just thought it was going to be this really kind of short book. Of course, was not. And I sat down writing with the idea that, okay, if it's good enough, I'll get it published. Mm-hmm. And I started liking it more and more. I fell in love with the characters and just the plot of it I still really love, which basically, Biolock is an alien invasion novel, but it takes place 30 years after an alien invasion. The aliens are making the humans live captive in these like biomes, kind of. They're basically prison, but nature-themed prison. And when you turn 30 to one of the biomes on your behavior. And I kept developing the story. As I wrote, like I kept adding in new things and creating these new plot lines. And it was just amazing and a very long book. And finally, after literally months, the first one is out. There's a lot to this book. And the second one, it's actually, I'm going to say it's sequels, but these aren't really sequels. There's continuations. Will be out soon as well. And I'm very excited for those.
Me too. I'm gonna add those to my TV read list. That sounds interesting. Like my mouth was open the whole time you was explaining. I'm like, but yeah. So how did you develop the characters for this story?
So actually, I remember doing like most of the character development was actually done after I started writing. I don't think I had any character planning sheets. I kind of just started writing. And I think the characters developed pretty nicely. The main character is named Griffin, and he is your average 13-year-old boy, except he's living in an alien prison. And he's very fascinating because as I started writing, I started adding things to his backstory. And I started adding, and actually around that time too, that was before You Won't Know Her Name. It was the summer before I wrote that. And again, I was kind of struggling with all of the stuff that had happened to me. So I added aspects of that and I started pouring real life into it. And there's another character in that story, Kira, too, that I started adding all these crazy plot twists to and started adding this really dark history behind her. And all of that kind of added into these very well-rounded characters.
Oh, wow. Wow. So who's your favorite character in your new book?
Definitely Kira, I think. And Griffin comes close. I really enjoyed writing Kira's perspective. I enjoyed writing what's going on. I enjoyed like coming up with all these plot twists and like planting them in the story. And she was just the funnest to write overall. Griffin's story arc isn't over yet because turns out I decided to write a Biolock 4, and I finished the entire first draft of that over the summer. I haven't written 5 or 6 yet. Those need to happen. And so Griffin's story is still continuing. It's far from over yet. However, Kira's story I feel like is over, and hers was like just the funnest to write. It was just crazy.
Wow. So what's your favorite chapter in the book and why?
Every time I'm asked that, I always think, is it chapter, I don't remember what chapter, it's chapter 9. It's either chapter 9 or, no, it's chapter 11 of Biome's End, which is actually the third book. Oh. And it's called The Stargazer, and it's in the perspective of the villain, but it's a very normal chapter. It's a very beautiful chapter, I think. Mm-hmm. However, it makes the villain seem like the main character. Actually, in Biolock, I try to make all of the villains, like, point of view chapters normal in comparison. It's not like trying to murder them every time it's in his POV. It's more of his daily life and what's going on in his life, which can be boring at times, but it can also be very fascinating because, villains are people too. And I think that Biolock especially is kind of like, it's different for each character's perspective. Like someone's the villain to someone, but someone's actually not to someone else. It's like kind of like that. So if you take the chapters told in the villain's perspective out of context, you'll think he's the main character.
Wow. Wow. I'm excited to read this. So when does this come out? Is it already on pre-order or is it already out?
The first Biolock book is out. It came out on August 27th. However, the next two, they're going to be out probably mid to late 2022. I'm not quite sure yet. I have all the other books to edit and be edited, so I'm not sure. Like, I haven't figured out my release order yet, other than The God's Right Hand's coming out next. I have another poetry book coming out, like, right after that. Wow. And then the book I'm working on right now, I'm thinking I might kind of release quicker than I would have thought because I'm really enjoying it. So I wanted to have it out.
Nice. So this is going to be really odd. Like, you're 14 and I'm 34, and I'm asking you advice about books. So I'm writing my first book, and I have like other ideas of other books. Is it okay, like in your opinion, is it okay to start one book and then go on to other books? Like if you have other ideas, like can you write all those other books? Like while you're writing?
It's common for people to want to do that. However, that's not the best choice because you're going to end up losing, the one you just were working on. You're going to end up switching and then you're going to forget about that one and then kind of keep moving. It's hard to write multiple books at once, I think. However, my advice is to try to write one, but start kind of writing down what you want to happen in the next one. So then you can like jump right into the next one once you finish the first draft. Actually, for me, what I do is I'll, finish the first draft of the book and actually go on and write a different first draft. And then once I'm done with that first draft, go back and edit another one, going right into editing immediately because I need to like clear my mind and kind of get more ideas first. Because if I just jump in like a few days later, I'm not going to be able to fix anything. And I think because of that, I just kind of, I get a million ideas as I'm writing, but instead I just try to jump into them after. And I'll try to see if there's something in that idea that I really, really like that I can actually put in the book I'm writing right now. And if it still works, I'll try to do it. And then it'll get me more excited about writing my own book.
Nice. I like that advice. It's really good. So for my final question, what advice would you give our listeners who want to pursue a writing career such as yourself, or like young students who want to pursue a writing career? What advice would you give them?
So it doesn't matter how old or how young you are, you can do it. I hear far too many people saying, oh, I'm too young to write a book. I'm too young to be a good writer. However, that's not true. Because writing is all about practice. If you're writing every single day and just writing short stories, trying to write your novel, you'll be able to improve your writing and you can write like an adult at 14. You just have to just keep on writing.
Yeah, that's true. That's really great advice. I want to thank you so much for coming on my podcast today and chatting with me.
Thank you so much for having me.
You have a great day.
You too. Thank you.
Bye.
You're like a circle that floats around me, keeping me safe and sound. And when I fall, you've tied a rope to me.